I'm really excited to add this additional announcement at the last moment that Susan, who you will hear today, and all of her amazing storytelling knowledge, is running a 5-day storytelling challenge, week commencing the 6th of October. So you can take what you learn in this episode and way more and actually implement it, make it happen, use those stories to get clients into your business. So if you would like to join, head to the show notes now before you forget and click on the link to join Susan's Storytelling Challenge. It's free and I've done it before and gained loads from it, so I hope you enjoy. If you are ever unsure as to whether to post something because it feels too personal, or if you've told your story so many times that you are tired of hearing it, then this episode is for you. We will talk about what stories work, which ones to tell, which ones to avoid, and how to practically use them in your content. I'm so excited today to be joined by Susan Payton. Susan is a messaging strategist, storytelling expert, and author of The Business of Stories. She helps founders and purpose-led business owners get clear on their stories so they can connect more deeply with their audience and sell their work with confidence. So welcome, Susan. I'm so happy you are here, especially because I know that your story led you to your entire business. So please do share more about your story and your business.
Yeah, sure. In 2014, I was looking around for support for women who wanted to start their own business. I'd always worked for myself, but I didn't really have a business. I was just charging time for money, right? And so I wanted to start something that I could actually grow and scale beyond my hourly rate. So I was looking around for support. And believe it or not, in 2014, there wasn't a lot of support, right? Facebook groups weren't a thing. And so apart from a couple of organizations, there really wasn't very much. And so I realized that if I was looking for support, there would probably be a lot of other women out there that were looking for support. So I decided to create a community, to create something that provided that support that people were looking for. So I called it the Business of Mums because it was for mums who wanted to start their own business or grow their business. I had a website built, with a forum and a notice board. And, back when it cost a lot of money to build a website, right? Because it was all had to be coded and it was thousands of pounds. Then somebody said to me, you could start a Facebook group. I was like, a what? What's that? I found out that you can start a Facebook group for free, which was a little bit of a shock at the time, having just spent all this money. But anyway, I had the website, I started the group, started to build this community. And it was great. It grew very quickly. I got to about 1,500 women quite quickly. I was offering resources. I was pointing people to things that would help them. I was doing interviews. I had lots of stuff for people to download and engage with. We were asking questions in the group. So it was getting lots of engagement and it was doing really well. But I was offering coaching. And this is the way that I was going to kind of monetize it, right? I was going to offer coaching. And nobody was buying my coaching. I kept putting more stuff into the group. I kept trying to show people that I could help them and I was resourceful and I was the person that was going to help them provide that support that they needed. But the reason that nobody was buying my coaching was because back then, I really couldn't clearly articulate what I could help them do. And I know that your audience is coaches, right? So this is key. And I know this is what you teach. I didn't have a nice, clear, compelling message. I wasn't really articulating the value of people working with me. Like, what was the value to them of what I could help them do? I didn't even really know who my ideal client was. It was mums who wanted to start a business, right? So looking back now, I can see why people weren't buying my coaching. But at the time, I didn't know what I wasn't doing. I didn't know what I didn't know. I was doing all the marketing things, buying all the courses. I was trying SEO. I even went to a marketing agency. And they said, yeah, give us your money. We'll fill up your group. And I paid them a lot of money. And they did get some more people into my group, but that wasn't the answer, right? More people, spending more money, doing more marketing stuff wasn't the answer. The problem was that I didn't have those key foundational pieces in place. So people didn't know why they should buy from me. And it was very frustrating. And I was sat at the kitchen table one night with my husband, and I was having a glass of wine, and I was feeling a bit emotional. And he said, "Is everything all right? Like, how's the business going?" And I got really tearful. And I said, "Who am I kidding? I haven't got a business. Like, people aren't buying my stuff. They're there for the free stuff and everybody's loving it. And it's a great vibe in the community, but nobody wants my coaching." And I said at the time, I think it's because they don't know who I am and they don't know why they would buy from me. So I decided that I needed to do something different. I knew it wasn't just pour more money into it. I knew I had to do something different. Just going out there and saying, "Hey guys, book a call, I can help you." That just wasn't working. So I went to bed that night and left the question lingering in my head. Like, what do I need to do? I need to do something different. So I went to sleep and I woke up the next morning and I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll go into the group and I'll just be really honest. I'll tell them who I am. I'll tell them the journey that I've been on, right? I'll tell them why I'm here now and what this group is for and where I want it to go and what I want for them. I'll tell them my story. So I sat down and I wrote it because we didn't have lives back then. We didn't have Zoom. I love writing. So I got my laptop open and I started telling my story. I put it into little sections. I put some little photos in, spent a little bit of time making it something that people would want to read. And I put it all out there. And I talked about how I'd been a single mum for a few years and how that was quite tough, trying to juggle work and being a single mum. I talked about how the stress of it actually made me quite ill. I had ME for a few years. It was a very ordinary story. It wasn't some dramatic, fit for a Hollywood blockbuster film. It was just a very ordinary, relatable story of a mum trying to build a business. And so I got it ready. And I pressed send and it went out to everybody in the group. And then I had a moment of panic. And I thought, what have I just done? First of all, does anybody care? Does anybody really want to know my story? Like, isn't that a bit self-indulgent to think that everybody wants to sit there and spend time reading my story? That was my first thought. My second thought was, have I been too honest? Because I've admitted that not everything is working the way that I want it to work. I've admitted that at that point, I wasn't a six-figure business owner. So would people want coaching from me now that I've been that honest? Would people want to buy from me? And so all of this was going through my head. I literally sat there thinking, what have I done? And then a message came through. And it was from somebody who said, "Oh my God, I've just read your story. I can totally relate to it. Like, it really resonates with me. And here's why." And she started to tell me a little bit about her story and the things that were similar. And as I was reading that, another message came through and then another one. And I started to get all of these messages from these women. And a lot of them were saying, "Oh, thank you so much for being so honest. Your story is really relatable and it's really connected with me." Some people said it made them feel emotional. Some people said it was really inspiring. And I never thought my story was inspiring. And in amongst those messages were messages from women who were saying, "So how do we work with you? And what is it that you can help me do?" And even some people were saying, "Can you help me share my story? Because I think I need to do that. I need to share my story." And I was completely blown away. Like, I went from struggling to be seen and heard in my own group to having people reaching out saying to me, "How do we work with you?" And all I'd done different was be really honest and real about my journey, what had got me through the tough times, who I was now, who I wanted to be, where I wanted this group to go, and all of the things that I wanted to support people with. And the story since that day is a whole nother story, right? But everything that has happened since then and all the things that I've created, the book that I wrote, the courses, the programs, the podcast I'm launching, everything started that day that I went into that group and I saw just how powerful storytelling is.
It's an amazing story. I just love how everything has gone back to that one moment where you were brave enough to share your story. It'd be really good to share, why are stories so powerful in our marketing?
Stories are one of the most powerful things that connects us as humans, right? Always has been and always will be. It doesn't matter what the algorithms are doing. It doesn't matter what trends or fads are popular on social media right now. Storytelling's never going to go anywhere. It's never not going to be powerful. As humans, we are hardwired to connect with other humans, right? It's right there in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need to connect. And stories are such a good way of connecting with people. They grab attention, right? They appeal to our senses and our emotions. They make us feel something. They can have a real impact on us. They can make us reflect on our own story. That's often what happened. A lot of those messages I got from women, they were starting to share their story, because when you hear story, actually, that's only half the story. It's what it makes you feel and what it makes you think about. I've got so many examples in my book of stories where it was actually how the story made me feel or made someone else feel. That's why they're powerful. That's why we connect with them. And we tend to remember stories, right? We don't forget stories, we remember them and we pass them on generation after generation after generation. So if stories are that powerful and if they make people feel connected to another person, human to human, then it makes sense that if we use them in our marketing, it's going to be a really effective way of having people connect with us. No matter whether you are B2C, B2B, whether you sell a product, whether you sell a service, whether you're a coach, whatever your business is, at the end of the day, business is done by people, right? Human to human. Using storytelling in your marketing, it will help you stand out, because especially now, especially when people are turning to AI and they want weeks of content at the click of a button, the people who take the time to craft and share compelling stories, and we can talk a little bit about what that means, right? It doesn't mean it has to be some amazing narrative that takes people on a journey. A story could be 2 sentences long. The people who take the time to share real, genuine, authentic stories to connect with people, they will stand out, number one. And number two, they will attract the right people. Because if your stories are really resonating and connecting with somebody, there's a good chance they're a good fit for you. And I always say, I love my clients. I love the people in Storytelling Mastery because they're all people that came in because they connected with my content, they connected with my stories, they love my emails, and they were really, really good fit for me.
Totally. I feel the same. I attract my people into my group. And I think that's mainly through storytelling on the podcast. I find it a lot harder in writing, but strangely, if I'm speaking out loud, it comes a lot easier. So if you are talking to the coach who thinks, I've shared my story, I don't want to keep sharing it, what else is there to say? Is everyone going to get bored of this? Tell me more about how we can use storytelling in our marketing.
There are so many stories that you can share. The first thing I would just say to that is, I don't know how many times I've told that story that I've just told you, but every time I tell it, somebody reaches out and says, oh, that story really resonated with me. That story really connected with me. It made me feel connected to you. So don't hold back on sharing your story. I know you feel like you've told it a million times, but remember, you are bringing new people into your world all the time and they don't know your story. I always talk to clients about having your core story ready to go, that story that really is about what's led you here doing what you now do. And it's a story you should be able to tell in 30 seconds or 30 minutes, depending on the situation. So that is the first thing I would say, is don't be frightened to share it lots. But yes, absolutely, you have so many stories to share. And if you just think back over your journey, everything that you've done, right? You've had a lifetime of events and experiences and milestones and moments along the way, the setbacks, the challenges, the learnings, the insights, the ideas, your values, your perspective, all of the things that have happened. You've got a lifetime of those. That's not one story. That's millions of stories. And one of the ways that I help people to get started is to just think about one of those moments. Just choose one moment along the way and think about what's the story in that moment. Because actually, trying to cram everything you've done into one story is too much. You're going to overwhelm. It's too much for people to even process, right? They'll probably take one look at it if it's written down and think, I'll save that for later. So we want to tell our story in little bite-sized chunks. In my book, I tell little snippets of my story throughout my book. I don't just go, right, here's my story and give the whole thing in one go. So absolutely think about breaking your stories down into chapters, down into moments. Then you'll realize you'll have lots and lots of stories. And then, of course, you've got new stories every day. Things that are happening in your business, your thoughts, your reflections, behind the scenes, all the things that are happening. I encourage people to capture those stories because we soon forget them if we don't. So it's quite a good idea to keep a little notebook by your bed at night and then just think at the end of every day to anything that happened today that could be a story that I could share. And you might not share it immediately. I've got notebook after notebook of things I've jotted down. And sometimes I'll share them immediately and sometimes I won't. I'll save them for later. But the trick is to start looking for them because they're all around you and capture them. And I actually get a lot of inspiration from the TV, from the radio, from other people's posts, not copying people, but I remember somebody on LinkedIn telling a story about synchronicity. And honestly, it sparked about 5 ideas for stories where there's been real synchronicity in my life and that some magic has come from that. So look all around you for inspiration all the time because there's tons out there. Think like a storyteller. Like when the things you're already doing in your business, putting a lead magnet together, right? Writing a talk or a masterclass, putting a proposal together, whatever you already do that you're sending out, that your ideal clients are going to engage with. Think, is there a story I could weave into this? How can I use storytelling to bring these tips to life? If you're doing 3 tips, 5 tips, weave in some little stories that actually bring that to life. A lot of people learn from examples. I do a thing called story prompts, and everybody always says to me, the example you give with the prompt is actually the most helpful because I could see how you'd used that prompt and it sparked ideas. A lot of people have said to me, my stories are very different now from seeing your examples than if I'd have just been left to do this on my own. Yes, it's about looking for opportunities during the day to weave storytelling into the stuff that you're already doing. And don't forget, like I said, a story can be 2 sentences long. I'm not talking about that they all have to be great, big, long, beautifully crafted narratives. They could be very short, couple of sentence stories.
Yeah, the trick is to start looking, capture the stories in a notebook. That's what I've written down. The thing that I struggle with, so I'll ask it in case other people struggle with it also. So what I find really difficult is having the story idea, kind of feeling like there's a lesson in there I definitely want to share with my people, but not really knowing a structure of how to get it out of my head and into other people's hands. For example, my daughter has a big spelling test today. We were talking about it on the walk in. She was really nervous. Her friends were messaging us going, oh my gosh, it's the spelling test today. And for once, we'd actually practiced all weekend, which is very rare. So I thought, it's going to be okay. At least she's tried her best and the outcome is out of her hands at this stage. So I guess the lesson for my audience in that is that we can just try our best. We don't know what the outcome's going to be on that sales call, whatever it might be. But all we can do is control what we can do in terms of preparation and marketing and all the things that we can do in our businesses to succeed.
It's a great job of tying that to a message.
Yeah, but I would have that and it would be a complete mess that I'd think this is too hard.
A really nice, simple structure to use as a guideline is the somebody wanted but so then structure. So I'll talk you through it. I didn't invent it, and it is actually based on that hero's journey, but I'll keep it really simple. Somebody wanted but so then. So the somebody was your daughter. So that's who the story is about, okay? What did she want? She wanted to do really well in her test, right? She'd practiced all weekend and she wanted to do really well. But the problem was she was getting herself in a little bit of a state about it, right? She was getting a little bit anxious. She was getting a bit emotional. It was all feeling a little bit overwhelming. Somebody wanted, but so you were able to reassure her, remind her that she had put the work in, that the outcome was out of her hands. She could only do her best, and she's got this, right? She's probably going to do really well. She's probably going to do way better than she thinks. It's just these unhelpful thoughts that are coming into her mind right now that are making her feel a bit anxious. And then you can just tie that back to your audience. And this is the power of knowing your customer story really well. We can talk in a second about those three main types of stories that I talk about. But the third one is your customer story, because the more you understand their story, the better you understand who they are, where they are, what they're thinking, how they're feeling, what they want, what's in the way, where they want to get to, all of those things. The more you understand their story, the easier it's going to be to speak to them, the easier it's going to be to make your stories really relevant and relatable to them. So as you did when you started talking and you realized that actually, yeah, that's how it's relevant to my audience, and tie it back to, do you know what? You've got this. I know your stuff is very encouraging. It's very motivational. It's very inspiring. So that kind of message of, you're doing okay, you're putting the work in, like you have got this. Unhelpful thoughts are going to come in. You're going to doubt yourself sometimes. You're going to second guess yourself sometimes. You're going to think that you haven't got what it takes when you see everyone out there and everybody else looks like they've got it sussed. But you're okay. You're on track. You're doing okay. You're right where you're supposed to be. This is a process. This is a journey. And by the way, nobody's got it sussed. We're all on that journey. We're all second guessing ourselves. We're all doing the best that we can do.
Love it. Thank you, Susan. This is so exciting and I can't wait to start weaving more stories in. Now I've got a bit of a framework. And in there, you mentioned 3 core types of stories that you teach. Tell us more about those.
So the first one is your personal stories. A lot of coaches struggle with the personal stories because they don't know how much of them to get across. And they don't want to make it all about them. So I totally get that. But we need to let people know who we are. We talked earlier about connecting and people who are a good fit and attracting the right people to you. You can only do that if you let people in and let them see who you are. So your personal stories are all the things that you've learned along the way. And it is the ups and the downs, the successes and the failures, the highs and the lows. I'm not here to tell you to paint a perfect picture of yourself. Actually, the more real and honest my stuff is, the more people relate to it, the more people connect with it. I write at least 2 emails a week to my list. 90% of them have probably got a story in them. Whenever I get a bit vulnerable, whenever I talk about maybe something not working or that I've got a lot of personal stuff going on at the moment, I've got a very elderly father who's poorly. My daughter hasn't been to school since March because of her anxiety. So I've got lots of stuff going on. But every time I talk about that, people relate to it so much and feel more connected to me because I've opened up and I've shared a little bit of what's going on for me. And they can see, like, okay, other people are having challenges too. Even the ones that are out there and showing up and sending the emails and launching the stuff, they've got stuff going on too. Those personal stories help other people feel seen and heard and understood and help them see who you are and what you're about and whether you're a good fit for them. And it's why I get people showing up and my clients get people showing up who already know they want to work with you. They already know that you're the person for them. And actually, I haven't done a sales call for years, because 9 out of 10 times, anybody who gets on a call with me comes on and says, I feel like I know you. They often say to me, it's almost a bit odd that you don't know me, because I feel like I know you so well. And that's because of my stories. It's not because of some slick sales page. It's not because of the SEO. It's not because of all of those marketing things that we think we've got to do. It's because I share really honest, relatable stories. So first one is your personal stories. The second one is your business story. And that's just more of the what you do. Personal stories are who you are. The business story is what you do. So what's that journey look like? What's led you here doing what you now do? Why this? Why did you start this business? And of course, there'll be overlaps in your personal stories. And that's great. We're looking for overlaps. We're looking for how these stories are all connected. The business story is where we're shining the light a little bit more on what does your business stand for? Like, why does it exist? Who does it serve? What problem does it exist to solve? All of those kind of things. What's the mission? What's the vision? So we've got your business story. And then finally is your customer story. And it's really, really important to understand their story. And I'm not talking about the stuff that other marketers get very excited about, like where do they live and what do they eat and what's their partner called and how many kids have they got? Yes, that is part of their story, but I'm talking about what is their story? Who are they? What's going on for them? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? You know, where are they now? Where do they want to go? What's in the way? What is it that you can help them with that's showing up in their story that has got them out there looking for help? How do you show up as the guide in their story? You're the guide. That's your role. You're there to take them by the hand, show them the way, show them that they have got what it takes, give them a path, help them to walk down it. But you can't do that unless you know their story. The better you know their story, the more relevant and relatable you can make your stories. So you need all three, and all three connect and intertwine. If you see my visually, for me, it's a Venn diagram and they're all overlapped. And then in between those, the intersection in between those stories is where you'll find your why. It's where you'll find who your people are. I know you help people get very specific about their niche and who they work with. For me, that always comes from people's stories. It's always in there. As we unpack their stories, they'll often have that aha moment about who the specific person is that they want to work with and serve. And also your value. I talked at the beginning about I didn't know how to articulate my value. And by your value, I don't mean what you charge. What I mean by your value is, what is the value to your ideal client of what you help them do? If they don't see the value in it, they're not going to buy. If they really see the value, if they really see, this is where I am now, and with your help, I can get to here, and you're going to guide me and help me get there. And if that place that they want to go is of high value, if it's a priority, if it's something they really, really want, then they'll buy. And we can share stories to help to get all of that across. Show, don't tell. Instead of telling people, this is why you need to work with me, we can share stories to show them what it is that we help them do.
I love it. So we've got our personal stories, we've got business stories, and we've got our customer story, and they all overlap. And it's interesting you talk about the stories often leading to the business, because in my program, I start with this visualization where I get them to break down their life into 5 or 6 different chapters. And we literally go, okay, from 0 to 8, what happened in your life? From 8 to 16, what happens in your life? From 16 to this. And that often leads to the niche and who they really want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they actually get that chance to really understand all of their value. So yeah, I hadn't actually thought of that until you mentioned how connected our stories are to the practical stuff of like, who do we help? Okay, so we know what stories to tell now. The next problem that I see come up a lot is people worrying about oversharing and what's okay to share and what's not okay to share. How do you help people through those worries?
Yeah, you're right. People do have a lot of worries about sharing their stories. Oversharing is one of them. And Really, the key is to keep your stories concise. Unless you're writing a book or creating something that's meant to be long, and there's a place for those stories too. But if we're talking about social media and emails, if we're talking about marketing, then we want to keep it really concise. And the way to do that is to, first of all, think about, why am I sharing this story? What is the point of me sharing it? And keep focused on that. Keep focused on the purpose of the story, rather than going into the detail and giving people probably way more information than they actually need. It's to really tune into, what is the intention behind this story? What's the learning or the insight that I'm sharing? What do I want people to take away? So if we go back to the story of your daughter, the learning or the takeaway that we got to at the end was that you've got this, you're doing the right things. There's going to be times when you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or emotional, and we've all been there. But actually, you just keep going. As long as you're showing up in the right way, then you'll get there. We're not sharing stories for the sake of sharing stories. It's about really thinking, like, why am I sharing this story? And who am I sharing it with? And what is it that I want them to take away from that? If we focus on that, then we're less likely to overshare. Also, giving yourself a word count. I often say to people in my group, and they say, oh, this is just too long. And I say, okay, give yourself a word count. Let's say 300 words. You will naturally start taking out the stuff that doesn't actually need to be there. Because a lot of the time, we just give people too much information. I always remind people, where does a James Bond film start? Bang in the middle of the action, right? They don't set the scene and tell us what's going to happen and fill us in and tell us who all the characters are and tell us where he is, do they? They just cut straight to the chase, literally. He's being chased across the rooftops. So jump into your story. You know, you don't need to give people a load of background information. Just jump straight into the moment that you want to share.
Very, very exciting. So now we're talking about frequency. How often should we be sharing our stories?
A lot of people say, oh, well, where does storytelling fit in with the value posts and the tips and all the other stuff? I don't think of those things as separate things, right? A lot of people say, when they work with me or they read my book or they come into my program, a lot of people say, I thought storytelling was going to be another strategy I had to master, but I've realized it can be the strategy. It can be your marketing. I don't tend to think of stories as a standalone, separate post that you weave in every third post or fourth post. I personally weave stories into everything. And a lot of people realize it's actually the missing piece. It's what was missing from their emails. It's what was missing from their social media. And when they start to think like a storyteller and start to weave storytelling into everything that they do, then they see stuff come to life. They see people engage more. You know, when I've got something like a 5-day challenge coming up, I do a lot of call to action posts, right? I do a lot of, I've got a 5-day challenge, here's the sign up page, come and join it. Those posts will get 3 likes, maybe 4 likes, because it's a call to action post. It's not something to engage with. The minute I put a story post out, and the last challenge I did, I put a story post out that started, I once put £10,000 on a credit card, even though I was in debt. That grabs people's attention. That post went crazy. So suddenly I finished it by talking about my 5-day challenge. I still had the same link to the same sign-up page. But the story post got loads of likes and comments and interactions. And so more people saw it than all of my call to action posts put together. I'm not saying don't do other posts. You absolutely, you want to have a nice mix of content. You want to teach, you want to share, you want to show, you want to give. You want that nice mix of content, but use storytelling at every opportunity. I mentioned earlier that stories can be 2 sentences long. So let me give you an example of a 2-sentence story. And this is one that I used in an email. And it was that Chris Tarrant told me that he was going to launch a television show called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And he told me the format of it. And I said, I don't think that's going to work. Luckily, He didn't listen to me. He went on and produced the show. And it was a phenomenal success around the world. So if you're thinking about starting a TV show, I'm probably not the person to come to. But if you're looking to write stories that connect with people and bring you more clients, I am the person to come to. And then I went into my call to action about my whatever I was promoting. Really short story, right? But it made people laugh. It got people talking. It created a little bit of intrigue. People wanted to know how I knew Chris Tarrant. So even a 2-sentence story can still do a really good job of engaging people.
Oh, I love that one so much, especially because, like you say, if I'm running a webinar or something, the one thing that puts me off running a webinar is saying, come to my webinar for 2 weeks solid beforehand. So great to think about how to make that more exciting.
Absolutely. And also, the more story posts you put out, they're the ones that get the engagement. They're the ones that get the reach. So then when you do put a call to action post out, way more people are going to see it because they've been engaging with your stuff. Yeah. I did a post on Saturday about my dog. My dog passed away on Friday. It got so much engagement. It's, I don't know, nearly up to 200 likes and over 100 comments and loads of engagement. Now, I didn't do it because I want people to see what I'm selling this week. That's not why I did it. But it just is such a good reminder that people want real, they want authentic. I can tell that everybody on my feed that commented is a doggy lover, right? It's the real dog lovers that jumped in and were like, oh no. Even stuff like that helps people to feel like they know a little bit more about you. I talked about the fact that we live on a farm and how much my dog loved all the interesting smells and all the droppings that he could hoover up all day, right? So you're just letting people in a little bit to see a little bit of your world, who you are, what you're about. And those stories always do really, really well.
Yeah, totally. I'm so sorry to hear about that. I don't know how you're speaking without crying, so I'll move on before I cry. I know you mentioned earlier story prompts. Are you happy to share one story prompt to get our listeners sharing a story today?
Yes, of course. How about, when have you taken a leap of faith in your business? When have you decided to do something when you didn't know whether it was going to work out, like a real leap of faith? And actually, that story that I just mentioned, where I said I'd put $10,000 on a credit card, even though I was in debt. The reason I did that was because I wanted to fly out to Nashville and train with a company called StoryBrand in Nashville. It was the beginning of 2019. And it was a huge investment, and I really didn't have the money at the time to do it. But I took a huge leap of faith, and I just knew in my heart, in my gut, I just absolutely knew that it was the right thing to do and that it would really help me to work out what I wanted my business to look like, how I wanted to structure it, what I wanted to offer. Luckily, my husband is incredibly supportive, and he said, look, if you feel that this is the right thing to do for your business, then do it. So I took that huge leap of faith, and boy, has it paid off, right? It's set me off on a path that has been incredible. But yeah, sitting on that plane, flying out to Nashville, $10,000 on my credit card, I remember thinking, God, I hope this works.
Oh, that's amazing. And look how it set you up for success in your business for years to come. Thank you so much, Susan. I know we could talk all day, but we better finish up soon. So please share how people can find you and anything you've got to help them with storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is thebusinessofstories.com. And I've got a really great place to get started. I've got a storyteller's pack. There's prompts in there. I talk you through my process and the personal stories, the business stories and customer stories. There's all sorts of resources in there. There's also a link to download my book for free. If you want to buy a hard copy, that you can get it on Amazon or any of the online bookstores. But yeah, the Storyteller's Pack, I mean, I'm sure you'll put the link in the show notes, but it's thebusinessofstories.com/pack. That's a really good way to get started. And on LinkedIn and Facebook, I'm Susan Payton UK.
Love it. Thank you so much, Sue. You've relit my fire for storytelling, and I cannot wait to get one out after this episode.
Amazing. I can't wait to see it.
I hope you loved today's episode and are fired up to go share your stories. If you want to have Susan's help and feedback on your stories, then she is running a challenge week commencing the 6th of October. It's free and it will share so many ways that you can actively implement it that week. You will find the link to her free challenge in the show notes, and I hope you enjoy. And like I say at the end of every episode, trust yourself, believe in yourself, and be the wise gardener who keeps on watering the seeds.